Hi there, I'm Loreli, Young Parents Director. I'm excited to introduce our guests for this Hope That Helps segment. We are going to be talking online safety, and I'm here with Mikhaela Gray from Fight for Freedom. So, Mikhaela, thank you for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
These segments are used to give hope to young parents who will be watching these. So we'd love to hear from you, your tips. Can you first, though, tell us about your role at Fight for Freedom and even your desire, why you would work for them in the first place, and what Fight for Freedom even is?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me here and to share today. So at Fight for Freedom, I am the Director of Education and Research, and I also help support teams that go into areas where sexual exploitation is known to occur to support individuals in their journey to healing and restoration. So Fight for Freedom, we're a Canadian organization, and we exist to be an advocate of justice for individuals who have been impacted by sexual exploitation and sex trafficking. And so how I got involved in the fight against human trafficking starts a number of years ago. And actually, it started because my mom shared with me her childhood best friend story. And before I share, I just want to mention that some of the stuff that I might be sharing in this session today, in this interview, it might be emotionally triggering. So I just wanted to let folks know that if they need to pause at any time, that some of this information can be difficult to hear and to wrestle through. So my mom's childhood best friend grew up in a home in Ontario that was abusive emotionally, physically, and sexually. And so she left her house thinking that anything would be safer than the home environment that she was living in. And as a young girl in the age of she was in grade 6. She was taken in by a family, and they adopted her in a kind of way. They clothed her, fed her, took care of her. And then when she was 14, she was sold into sex trafficking here in Ontario, where she was forced into an exploitive situation for a number of years of her life. And so when I heard my mom's best friend's story, and I was in shock. Like, I understood that trafficking happened in other situations, in other communities, but I didn't realize like it was happening here in our own backyard. And my heart hurt for what she had experienced and what she had been through. And so that was the starting point that really led me to explore, how can I get involved? How can I do something to prevent other people from being in an exploitive situation that she faced? How can I help support people exit situations like that and provide them with tools and resources to walk in a life of freedom and healing? So that's kind of how I got involved, and a little bit about my role at Fight for Freedom.
That's so great. And I know you're just speaking to a portion of that today. We're talking about online safety. So can you tell us, what is the importance of online safety?
Online safety is critically important. Traffickers, they utilize social media to make contact, lure, and groom children for the purposes of exploitation. Sometimes this contact that they make with individuals can lead to exploiting an individual or a child online. And sometimes traffickers reach out through online to build a relationship with an individual for the purposes of later exploiting them in person. So just recently, just with COVID-19 and everything happening, we're seeing an increase in social media usage. So how much time kids are spending online. We're also, unfortunately, seeing an increase in online exploitation. Cybertip.ca, which is Canada's organization that allows for the reporting of children who are being exploited online, shared that between April 3rd and April 17th, just recently, there was a 40% increase in the number of individuals who are reporting online child exploitation. And they say that this is just a snapshot. So online safety, yeah, it's a huge problem. It's a huge issue. Many youth who have had a situation like this occur won't report, and they try to deal with the situation on their own. So it's really critical that we find avenues to help ensure folks are safe. We know that online exploitation typically happens, the average age is 13 years old. So it's quite young. Wow. And 86% are girls. Yeah. So it's really important to discuss online safety and to identify ways and mechanisms that we can create safe spaces within our homes to talk about online safety and to monitor social media accounts.
Yes, those statistics are heartbreaking. So I'd love to hear from you. How does that online exploitation happen?
That's a great question. Online exploitation can happen in a number of ways. First, I think it's important to talk about vulnerabilities, like how is an individual vulnerable to being trafficked or vulnerable to being exploited online? And anyone can be vulnerable to being exploited. One of the biggest risk factors to being trafficked is wanting to be loved. And who doesn't want to be loved, right? An individual who's looking for affirmation or attention, if there's a low socioeconomic background or financial need, as well as low self-esteem. Those are just some of the things. If someone's experiencing bullying or discrimination, the LGBTQ community is targeted by traffickers, Indigenous communities. So there's many things that can make an individual vulnerable to being trafficked, but also vulnerabilities can come through what people share online and the information that they disclose online. And so what I mean by that is we kind of like live in this world now where people are sharing everything about their life online and looking to connect with people that way. But sometimes we can overshare. So for an example, someone might be sharing about thoughts that they're having about their body image or relationship struggles or issues at schools and things like that. And traffickers are looking for people who are sharing those things to identify needs that maybe they have in their life, because traffickers are expert psychological manipulators. They can see the vulnerabilities in an individual and they look to fulfill them by making promises of love, by giving them gifts, by providing them money. Whatever's lacking in their life, an individual's life, a trafficker looks to come in and fill that gap. So they start to lavish someone with gifts or promises of love and affection in a relationship. And that becomes exploitation when they demand repayment for things given to you, perhaps through sex or sending sexual images or sexual videos. Some other dangers that can lead to exploitation would be sharing personal information online or your location, and also sending sexual photos or videos. We know there's more pressure than ever for young people to send sexual photos or videos, but unfortunately, sometimes people utilize those photos to blackmail, to threaten, and to bring someone into an exploitive situation. Another thing I just kind of thought would be important to share as it relates to this question is that because of the digital world we live in, making friends with people online is becoming more and more common. So many people feel that the online community are their friends. So people play video games online and they meet people online and they feel like they're friends, or they chat with someone online and they become best friends without ever having met them in person. And so even though that person may seem like your friend, without having met them in person, how do you really know they are who they say they are? A21 just put out, it's an anti-trafficking organization. They put out an awesome video recently that sheds light on this, where there was a young boy, it's a true story. He met a girl through online gaming, and she pressured him into sending a sexual video, which was then sent to everyone on his social media list. It turns out that the girl, or who he thought was a girl, was actually a man behind a screen. And so that's just one of the ways that online exploitation can happen.
Yeah. It feels overwhelming even to hear that information, and you just gave a small snippet of it. So I want to ask, where do traffickers make this contact? Where are they connecting to youth?
Yeah, so they're connecting with youth anywhere that youth are. So if we're focusing right now on online safety in particular and online exploitation, here in Ontario, the OPP have shared that perpetrators have been reaching out to children through social media platforms like Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram. Often social media accounts are set to public. So that means any other user can comment or send a message without permission being required. So offenders may send links to explicit videos in an inbox, make sexual comments or threats even to children that they're luring. So the internet can be used, those social media apps are avenues where they look to make contact with person and to communicate with them through video games, as I mentioned. is an avenue through which traffickers are making contact. But basically anywhere that a child is online, traffickers are looking for ways to contact them, boys and girls.
Yeah, it's very sobering. And I think, I think of the situation with young parents is they would be targeted. They'd be considered, many of them, youth, and as well as their children who might be online in various ways. And it just feels like this potential for harm is great. Mm-hmm. And just being vigilant, I guess, about understanding where your child is, or even about your own activity online, and that you are targeted when you're online. And so how do you protect yourself? So do you have tips and resources for us to get started, to understand this a little bit better? We only have so much time today, but would love to hear how we can explore it more.
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a number of things that folks can do. As a parent, some of the things that you can do is to keep your accounts private. And if your child has an account, ensure that their account is private as well. To block and report users who communicate with you or your child unwantedly. You can also monitor accounts. I think that's really important to ensure that your child isn't sharing personal information, that they aren't photos that are potentially revealing in nature. One thing that I've been reading in studies that's really unfortunate is there's offenders and perpetrators who are looking photos of children, sometimes even photos of children that are clothed, looking at those for the purposes of exploitation. So it's really important to just be aware of what kinds of photos of your children that you're posting online. Right. Another important tip is to not meet up with people in person that you've met online. And also just have ongoing conversations, continuing to learn through different resources. So some of those resources that you can get more information at is at cybertip.ca. It's a great website with lots of resources on online safety, how to talk to your kids about online safety. There's also a company called Bark Technologies, and they have a number of parental controls that you can have to help monitor apps and safety and understand what kind of content is coming into your home through online means. There's also a website called protectkidsonline.ca, and that provides tips and tools for children and for parents as well.
Yes, so there are resources out there, and there is hope. Would love any additional hope you might be able to give, or thoughts about this as we just close off here. Mikhaela, what else, is there anything that you can add to what you said?
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing I haven't touched on yet, but I think is a really important component when we're discussing online safety, is exposure to porn and pornography. We know the average age of exposure right now is 11 years old. And there's a number of emotional, physical, and social impacts from watching pornography. And it really actually alters the wiring within the brain, and it can lead to compulsive porn use. So I think it's important for parents to be aware of just the exposure that their children could be facing with porn, but also potentially for themselves as well. But, I just want to encourage the parents who are watching and tuning in today, because, you have the opportunity to connect with your child about online safety. And by taking the time to learn about online safety today, you are demonstrating commitment to learning how to keep yourself safe and to keeping your child safe. And I also want to encourage you about just some of these heavy topics that we've talked about, like sending sexual photos or videos online, or compulsive porn use. Like, you may be watching this, and these may be things that are making you feel uncomfortable because maybe you've been impacted by sexual exploitation in some way, or maybe you're feeling the pressure to send photos, or you're struggling with watching porn. And I just want to let you know that you're not alone. Sometimes when we're struggling in one of these areas, we can feel shame, we can feel guilt, but I just want to let you know that there's grace for you today, no matter who you are or what you've done or what's been done to you, that there's hope and freedom in Christ. And that if you're struggling with any of these things, please reach out for support. There's other resources like fightthenewdrug.org and Fortify, which is an app that helps with compulsive porn use. And you can also reach out to us at fightforfreedom.ca, and we would love to connect with you and support you and journey with you. And yeah, just wanted to let you know that you're not alone, and that there's resources and support available for you if you need.
That's great. And you've mentioned what we would like to mention as well, the idea that there is freedom. So from one angle, we're approaching it that there are these tips and ideas that can help protect you and your child. And from the other perspective is that if you are engaged in any of this, if you feel trapped by it, that there is help. So either side, whatever you're on, we want to be there for you, and we want to offer you hope, and certainly hope that helps. So that's it for this segment, but we will be in touch. Please do not hesitate to reach out. If any of this, you want more information, we'll be talking about this in our support groups. And if you need one-to-one connection over this, if you'd like to speak to one of our leaders, we would love to have that conversation. And Fight for Freedom is an organization that we are loving what they're doing. We're loving how they're helping resource us so that we can help you. So together we can help you move toward freedom there. So thank you so much, Mikhaela. Thank you for your insights, your information. It means a lot to us.
Thanks for having me.